record on this. Let's offer some prayers to Srila Prabhupada, and please, anyone you can read, like to read, please do. After we offer our prayers, Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Bhutale Shemati Bhakti Vedanta Swamti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavari Pashtatala Sataline Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. And I've just shared the screen there so you can see that in case you don't have the book in front of you. And again, please, any questions, comments, you're more than welcome. Just unmute or put in the chat as per usual. Hare Krishna. So let's see what jewels we can find in today's reading. So, Maharaj Kishore, that's a reading hand you put up, I presume. So you can read text 27. Nice picture of Jagannath you have there. And you're getting ready for, we just had a Snan Yatra meeting today. Discussing some details about that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Shall I start reading?
Yes, start reading the Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Text 27. Sarvani indriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma sanyama yogagnau juhyati gnana dipite. Translation. Others who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of mind and senses offer the functions of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Purport. The yoga system conceived by Patanjali is referred to herein. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, the soul is called Pratyag Atma and Parag Atma. As long as the soul is attached to the sense enjoyment, it is called Parag Atma. But as soon as the same soul becomes detached from the such sense enjoyment, it is called Pratyag Atma. The soul is subjected to the functions of 10 kinds of air at work within the body, and this is perceived through the breathing system. Patanjali's system of yoga instructs one on how to control the functions of body's air in a technical manner so that ultimately all the functions of air within become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. According to this yoga system, Pratyag Atma is the ultimate goal. This Pratyag Atma is withdrawn from activities in matter. The sense interact with the sense objects like the ear for hearing, eyes for seeing, nose for smelling, tongue for tasting, hand for touching, and all of them are thus engaged in activities outside the self. They are called the functions of the pranavayu. The apanvayu goes downwards. Vyanvayu acts to shrink and expand. Samanvayu adjusts equilibrium. Udanvayu goes upwards. And when one is enlightened, one engages all these in searching for self-realization. Thank you. Prabhu, you are muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes. Anyone can say what type of yoga is being spoken about here? We mentioned it yesterday at the end.
Ashtanga yoga.
Ashtanga yoga, yeah. And anyone can say which chapter is more details of Ashtanga yoga? Yes, there's a chapter that's more or less dedicated to Ashtanga yoga, although it's named a different type of yoga. Oh, that doesn't.
Jnana yoga.
Jnana yoga, that's it. Yeah. So principally, it's a description of that, and because jnana yoga means to meditate, so the means for controlling the mind in this yoga system is different than what we read about. We read about the brahmacharis, And how do they? What's their sacrifice? It's the hearing.
The hearing, yeah. So
Hearing process, yeah. And the householders?
the senses.
Yeah, the senses in the fire of
Fire.
sense objects. And
Yeah.
that practically meant through regulated sense gratification, or specifically sex that's done according to religious principles. So there's a sacrifice there. And yesterday, one of the conclusions we had was that human life is meant for some type of sacrifice. But here, yogis, they will endeavor, or they will control these life airs in order to control the mind. Yeah, that's the principle of yoga. Is to bring the mind under control. And this is often, Prabhupada would often call this the mechanical means. Yeah, by actually drilling, as described in the next verse, drilling the life airs and etc. In order to gain, this chapter is called transcendental knowledge. Yeah. So, any further curiosities or questions about this? I'm sure you've all heard of Patanjali. Often, I know Bhakti Vigyan Swami Maharaj. He gives a seminar. One of our teachers, one of our Bhakti yoga teachers, and because Patanjali speaks about mantra meditation, and there's some lessons which can be of Patanjali, excuse me, there which can help, which may be which are of some help to us chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But Patanjali is the classic compiler of yoga.
Prabhu, could I just ask, is
Yeah.
Patanjali in a sampradaya, or where is he?
Yeah,
Where is he situated?
He's one of the yoga. There's 6 darshans of the Vedas, it's called, or 6 purports given to Vedic knowledge. One of them is yoga. Yep. Another one is Sankhya. Anyone else could? Another one is Vedanta. Sankhya. One is yoga. Anyone can know the others? I saw, who did I see with us who sometimes knows? Dhananjaya?
Is Nyaya one of them? Nyaya?
Nyaya, that's correct. Yeah. Nyaya.
Dhyana yoga.
No, Dhyana yoga is included in yoga. But anyway, he is the area for yoga.
Yeah.
I say that with a bit of hesitation, but I'm pretty sure that's the.
No, I think he is an acharya, because I think he actually instigated this whole system. He was the original compiler of this system of yoga.
So it is a system. It's not unbona fide. A system. It is. Sorry, Dhananjaya. Your voice is coming in and out. Your voice. Okay, so some technical issues there. Yeah, so Patanjali, the yoga system. Technical issues there. Yeah, so. Okay, my voice is coming. Okay, don't worry, Dhananjaya, for now. There's some issues there, and if that's you out there. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Can I ask the question, please?
You can, please ask.
Yeah. It's about in the middle of the purport, the sentence. Yeah. The Patanjali system of yoga instructs one how to control the functions of the body's air in a technical manner, so that ultimately all the functions of the air between become favorable for purifying the soul of material attachment. My question is that this purification is direct or indirect? Because if we control these airs and that help us to control the mind and the senses. That's the purification of the soul. But also we know that sound vibration can directly purify the soul. So I just want to know, is this air purifying the soul, or what is the connection?
If I understood your question, basically it's the method is because through the life airs, basically it's through the life airs. I'm just reading here from Bodhijan. He mentions, as I think I mentioned, it is a way of controlling the mind, and then through control of the mind, one becomes one achieves a level of detachment from even their own body, let alone material desires. So that's their method. Some of them may they may have a mantra which they chant. Generally, that mantra will be a manasa, it will be, but generally it's not the Maha Mantra. Some of them would use mantra according to their specific practice. So I don't know whether I'm answering your question exactly, but
Yeah,
this is as much as I can
fine.
say on that. Can you perhaps did that help at all? Can you just paraphrase your question again?
Yes, that's helped a lot. I understand now with this explanation. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And even one of our Goswamis, Jiva Goswami, he mentions that we may do pranayam before we begin chanting our mantra, specifically the Diksha mantras. One may chant pranayam just to bring the mind under control and be able to better meditate upon the mantra. But generally, devotees in general do not do that as such. Prabhupada never taught us to do that exactly, but it's there. You'll see Jiva Goswami mentions that in one of his sandarbhas. But thankfully, we do not, in order to achieve perfection, we do not have to engage in this type of yoga. Yeah, we engage in the activities of bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smarana, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Although personally I find sometimes I have read to some degree the teachings of Patanjali before and about the yoga system, and I found it helpful in some ways. I picked up some things there and I found it helpful, but our ultimate means of perfection is bhakti. All right. But this is some person's sacrifice. This is the yogis, and it's meant for achieving knowledge, as will be described. Okay. Anybody else has any questions? That we can't promise we can answer them correctly, but if there's any questions out there. Okay, Mother Lavanga is just coming back in again. Okay, you can put any questions or curiosities in the chat also. Let's read text 28 then. Let's go on to text 28. Ravi Yagnas. Yes. Anyone would like to read this verse, text 28?
I will read Prabhuji.
Go ahead.
Dharvya yagnas tapo yagna yoga jnanas tatha pare svadhyaya gnana rajanascha yataya samsita vrataha. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possession, and others by performing severe austerities. By practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. The sacrifice may be fitted into various divisions. There are persons who are sacrificing their possession in the form of various kinds of charities. In India, the rich mercantile community of princely Orders open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmasala, Annasetra, Atithi Sala, Annatalaya, and Vidya Pitha. In other countries too, there are many hospitals, old age homes, and similar charitable foundations meant for distributing food, education, and medical treatment free to the poor. All these charitable activities are called the Dravya Maya Yagna. There are others who, for higher elevation in life or for promotion to higher planets within the universe, voluntarily accept many kinds of austerities, such as Chandrayana and Chaturmasya. This process entails severe vows of conducting life under certain rigid rules. For example, under the Chaturmasya vow, the candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year, July to October. He does not eat certain food, does not eat twice in a day, or does not leave home. Such sacrifice of the comforts of life is called Tapomaya Yagna. There are still others who engage themselves in different kinds of mystic yogas, like the Patanjali system, for merging into the existence of the absolute, or Hatha Yoga or Astanga Yoga, or particular perfections, and some travel to all the sanctified places of pilgrimage. All these practices are called Yoga Yagna. Sacrifice a certain type of perfection in the material world. There are others who engage themselves in the studies of different Vedic literatures, specifically the Upanishad and Vedanta Sutras, or the Sankhya philosophy. All of these are called Swadhyaya Yagna, or engagement in the sacrifice of studies. All these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher status of life. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from this because it is the direct service to the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental.
Okay, thank you. Quite a bit in here.
Yeah.
Lots a few details. Any questions? Personally, as I was hearing this, I was picturing in my mind Pacific Yagna, which when I go to India, I see a lot, and I really appreciate. Which one was it called here? And some, well, Prabhupada mentions, and some travel to all the sanctified places of pilgrimage. As you know, in India, it's a very common thing for people to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles on a bone-shaking bus, on a bone-shaking road, and queue up for hours and hours and hours to get a darshan of a Pacific Lord in a temple, even for a few minutes. And you see, one time I was at Govardhan, and there was thousands of people doing circumambulation of Govardhan Hill. Literally thousands of people. I think it happened to be just in Ekadashi, but there's thousands of people, and you could tell a lot of them were, you could say, they were otherwise engaged in working in Mumbai or Calcutta, but they was all circumambulating with the families, children, and everyone. And everyone, there were all the thousands of people. They was all circumambulating barefoot. There was only 3 people who had shoes on, and that was me and my 2 companions. Eventually, we got embarrassed and we took our shoes off. But anyway, just that point of yes, that's one sacrifice. So here, but anyway, anything else from here? Does anyone? Different charitable institutions. Everyone, can someone tell us what Dharmashala is? Someone tell us what
It's not common.
Dharamshala,
Sorry,
oh,
try again.
it's like a place where people go and stay on pilgrimage.
Correct. Yes,
Place where people go and
that's correct. Yes. So normally it's
I
charitable.
remember doing this when
Yes, carry on, Chandravali. You're muted. You've just muted yourself.
remember you
Oh, the connection's not so good.
Yeah.
Your voice is coming
can you
in.
hear me?
Now we can. Quick before we can't.
Yeah, now we
Okay.
can quick.
Was young.
Go
We
on.
used
Oh,
Zoom's great, isn't it?
colors. It's
But
like a
it,
little
but it
room.
definitely has its drawbacks. Doing these things online is great.
it definitely has its drawbacks.
I think Mother Chandravali said when she was young, I think she used to do it in Dharamshalas. Put it in the chat. All right, Dharamshala, yeah. Dharamshala is like a place very simple and basic, but it's there for pilgrimage. For a lot of places in India, a lot of they would have in villages, there'd be places set aside for traveling pilgrims to actually stay. Like in the past, there was no such thing as hotels in the past in India. It didn't exist. There was no hotels because it wasn't needed. Each village you would come to, that they would let you stay, and they would provide you with food, and we're very happy to host you. There was no such thing as hotels, etc. The people were very very accommodating for guests. So, and Anakshetra, that one's quite self-explanatory, isn't it? Giving of grains, we could say that. Atiti Shala. And you've heard of the word Atiti Bhagavan?
There is a saying in Indian culture which is like Atithi Devo Bhava.
That's it, Atiti Deva Bhava. And that means?
Yeah, that means Atithi word means a
Unregulated.
person who has no particular time to come. So basically, they don't, without prior informing, if a person comes to your home, that person is called Atithi. Tithi is basically time, and Atithi is basically the one who is not on time as in one who is not informing before coming. There is no time for that person to inform and then come.
And then
So
Devo
Atithi,
Bhava.
Devo means like God. Bhava means manifested. It's like God manifested.
Yes. So, okay, yeah, Titi.
Atithi is,
Devo
yeah.
Bhava. Yeah, so that's part of the Vedic culture. An unexpected guest. Normally, when a guest, if you got a guest coming, then you're getting things ready, you're getting things organized. But then someone may come completely unannounced and say, I want to stay for a month. A family member. Some family member comes from Australia, knocks on your door and says, is it okay if I stay for a month? And you open it, yes, and you treat them so nicely, you know? All right. Yeah, Titi Shala. And Anata Alaya. Anyone know what that one is? I don't know what that one is. Anata Alaya.
Orphanage.
Orphanage. Okay, thank you. Great, I'm learning. Great. I've read this so many times. I didn't know what this meant. So orphanage, yeah, you see that often. And Vidyapita, that's an obvious one. That's teaching, isn't it? Giving knowledge. Yeah. And he mentions there's other in hospitals, old age homes, etc. But let's get back to the verse. So any other comments or curiosities about this? Mentions about Chaturmasya. We've all heard of Chaturmasya. Bhaktisiddhanta didn't follow it he followed it more before he started his Gaudiya Mat mission. He would follow strict Chaturmasya, and as devotees of ISKCON, it's often mentioned as we hear that he would, for instance, have his hands behind his back and would just eat from the floor, bow down, or hands behind the back and bend down and eat. And whatever you can eat while you're bowed down as such is what you would eat for the day. Like that. And so we see pictures of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Let's see, we've got our core team here. So you all know, hopefully, that he was the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. And you see pictures of him with a beard or grown out beard. But when he started as far as I understand, when he started the Gaudiya mission, then he would not follow those same Chaturmasya vows, as far as I know. Okay. Yes, sacrifice the comforts of life. Yeah, again, we mentioned a point yesterday. These things are purifying, but what does Prabhupada say? What's the main point in this purport that Prabhupada says, having heard this?
That Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any of one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Because I think this all mentioned before, it's temporary. It's giving temporary results.
Yeah. Also, I think Mother Supergreeny, you shared a very interesting quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, wasn't it? Where devotees may engage in these things, anakshetra, vichapita, definitely, dharmashala. But that's out of their natural compassion for people. Yeah. But as Prabhupada says, that's not a particular sadhana to become Krishna conscious. It's just a manifestation of a devotee's compassion and mercy. But here, Bodhidharma mentions that these yagnas which are mentioned, although it's mentioned Krishna consciousness cannot be attained through these, they may provide gradual upliftment and can be stepping stones towards devotional service. Yeah. So they may create a beatific disposition, kind of favorable disposition, a sattvic disposition for becoming attracted to the devotees and the activities of bhakti. All right. Anything else here we can pull out? There are others who engage themselves in the study of different Vedic literatures, the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutras, Shankar philosophy. That's called Swadhyaya Yagna, study. All right. Okay, let's read that again at the end. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, okay, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. Now, this is important to note. Prabhupada often does this. He keeps us focused on the goal of the Bhagavad Gita, which is bhakti. And that's what Krishna is attracting people to. And that's what ultimately he's going to bring Arjuna to, is surrender to the principles of bhakti. So this is why, without Srila Prabhupada's purports, Bhagavad Gita can often be confusing. I think we mentioned this a bit earlier on when we began the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when we began this fourth chapter. Because someone could read this part of the Bhagavad Gita, and especially the sixth chapter, which is Dhyana Yoga. And they may conclude that Krishna is describing many yoga systems here, Karma Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and you can choose which one to actually do. It's like an encyclopedia of different yogas. Okay, Karma Yoga is in this chapter. Okay, you're into that. Okay, Ashtanga Yoga, 6th chapter. That's why Prabhupada keeps us, he keeps us in light, he keeps us focused on the actual meaning of the Gita. And that's why scholars, often some, have a problem with Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And they criticize Prabhupada. Like, for instance, they will say, like here, in verse chapter 4, text 28, Krishna says this, Krishna says that about different yagnas. And Swami Bhaktivedanta, he somehow mentions that actually it's all meant for Krishna, where Krishna is not mentioned. And they criticize like that. I have one book, it's called the Bhaktivedanta Purports by His Holiness Srila Shivaram Swami. And he counters these arguments by the scholars. Like one of the comments is, although Bhagavad Gita, mentions bhakti in some verses, Swami Prabhupada seems to see bhakti everywhere in the Bhagavad Gita. Although it's not directly expressed, but Prabhupada gives these bhakti translation, even to the word for word. A lot of times you see Prabhupada will give a bhakti translation to some of the Sanskrit verses. And this really gets up the, the scholars, they really, for them, it's been unethical. You understand? You can see, so that's why we think from Prabhupada, and you see this a lot. Prabhupada keeps us, he keeps us focused. Any questions or comments on that? But,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, please.
Yeah. So here it says that we can achieve Krishna consciousness only by direct service. So what is the direct service? Can you please elaborate that? Yeah,
what's the direct service? I did mention that today. Anyone, devotees, can say what the 9 direct services are of bhakti?
It's Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu.
Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Altogether, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Achanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedanam. So, Shravanam means to
hear.
To hear. So you hear about Krishna. So this is what we are doing by reading Bhagavad Gita. So, and Kirtanam, this is what we're doing.
To chant.
Chanting.
Yeah. And Vishnu, Smaranam, easy one.
Remember.
Meditate.
So remember. So what you are hearing and chanting about, you do Smaranam. Swavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Archanam, it's an easy one. Worship.
Worshipping, yes.
Yeah, it's Archanam, Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Archanam. Vandanam.
Praying, holding hands.
Yeah, I have to go from the beginning. Vandanam, Dasyam, is that the next one?
Yeah.
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Padasevanam. It comes before Archanam. What's Padasevanam?
Is offering obeisances.
Going to the temple, Padasevanam also, that's mentioned, Prabhupada elaborates this on, this verse comes from the 7th canto. So, Padasevanam means visiting the holy places, like that. Padasevanam, Archanam, worship, Vandanam, prayer, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, taking up some menial service. Then Atma, and then Atmanivedam means to give your whole self to Krishna. Yeah, mind, body, and words. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam.
Friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship.
Krishna is my friend. Krishna is my well-wisher. Yeah, Krishna is wishing me well. He's my friend. So develop that sense of relationship with Krishna. Okay, did that help? There's the
Thank you.
they're the 9 angas of bhakti. If you want to read more about them, this verse is in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada gives his longest purport to that specific verse and describes each of them in detail. The verse in the 7th canto. Spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. I think I got that right. Okay. Any other curiosities or questions? Or if not, we can go on to text 29. Okay.
Prabhu,
Yes.
I had one comment about
Yes.
the different
Dhananjay.
types of yoga Lord Krishna has mentioned in Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Based on my experience until now, I feel that all these yogas, Dhyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, apart from Bhakti, all these other yogas are basically like limbs of Bhakti Yoga, by which we can perform. If we know all the other yogas, we will be able to perform Bhakti Yoga in a much efficient way.
Yeah, if I understand you correctly, I get my stis here. Bhakti yoga consists of let me just bring it. I made notes of this. 1 second. Here. I was doing a study on this book actually.
Just for example, in Karma Yoga, for example, Lord mentions that give up all the fruitive desires and do your duty as a matter of duty. Do all the actions as a matter of your duty. When we apply that in Bhakti Yoga, when we understand that particular point and then apply, we will be able to perform Bhakti in a way, with a selfless way, using this Karma Yoga's point. In Dhyan Yoga, Lord mentions that how to focus on his holy name. For example, he says that one should fix the eyesight between on the nose, on the front side of the nose.
Yeah.
Sit erect and without any movement try to meditate on my name or myself.
Yoginam Apisha.
Yeah. So even though it is a part of Dhyan Yoga, if we use that particular point to perform our bhakti, which is chanting, we will be able to perform chanting much more efficiently and attentively. So it's like all these points of different yogas actually contribute to perform bhakti yoga in a more efficient way.
Yes, thank you, Dhananjay. Actually, if you read these sections of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada speaks about these different yogas. He does indeed, or Krishna himself speaks about them in where the perfection of them, for instance, Dhyana Yoga is Yoginam Apishavesham. I just wanted to point out that yoga, the yoga system contains specific elements. And those elements are, just getting ready here, those elements, just look at my notes here, are work, knowledge, renunciation, meditation, and devotion. So for instance, in, let's just look at Karma Yoga. Now, yoga means to link, and you mean to link with Krishna. So in Karma Yoga, work is the main feature. I was going to share this when I haven't finished taking notes on this, but I will share this complete for each yoga system. But anyway, for now, Karma Yoga, the work is the main system, is the main element. Knowledge, so it's work which is directed by Sastra, So there's a certain degree of knowledge. That knowledge that Vishnu is the beneficiary of all of one's work. That's karma yoga. And renunciation, what role does that play in karma yoga? One willingly shares the results of their work, but only partially, because they're still attached to the fruits of their labor. Yeah. And then what about meditation? It's minimal because mostly they're concentrating on the fruits of their work. So their devotion, well, as they are willing to offer the results to the Lord, there is a sense of devotion, but it's out of duty and a desire to succeed in one's work. So again, you got that, these 5 aspects, these 5 elements of yoga: work, knowledge, renunciation, meditation, and devotion. And there is a transition to Gyan. I won't go through that, how that happens from karma to Gyan. But in Jnana yoga, looking at these 5 elements, work, there's very little. Why? Because they do study and speculate and live in solitude, the Jnana yogis. Knowledge, it's increased more than the karma yogi through study. They're absorbed often in the oneness of spiritual existence. Is this okay to go through this? To give you a bit of an understanding in relation to Dhananjay's point. Renunciation. So what's renunciation aspect in Jnana Yoga? Well, as a consequence of developed knowledge, they are more detached than the karma yogi. Renunciation. So the element of meditation, it's increased from karma as it's concentrated on understanding the self. However, such meditation is minimal. That's Jnana Yoga. And devotion, less than the karma yogi, as the Jnani is not making any offerings to Vishnu. Right? So you follow that, these 5 elements, again, work, knowledge, renunciation, meditation, and devotion. Now I also want to go to, now bhakti, find my notes, 1 second. Okay, I'll have to. Now bhakti has all these in full and in perfection. Yeah, so work, knowledge, and renunciation, and meditation, and devotion. So in work, the devotee offers everything to Krishna. Yeah, their life is centered on Krishna. Knowledge, full, and they understand the whole science of Krishna. Yeah, renunciation, that's in full. They offer everything to Krishna. They engage everything in Krishna's service. Meditation is full. Their whole life is dedicated to meditating upon Krishna and serving Krishna. Devotion, their whole life is a manifestation of devotion. So in bhakti, these five elements are there in full. So when a yoga system like karma, it takes an aspect of bhakti, which is the work aspect. You follow that? And again, it takes the knowledge aspect. Any questions on that? This takes more of a longer presentation, but just give you some idea of these 5 elements of all yoga systems. They reach their perfection in bhakti, has all of them in full. Work for Krishna, knowledge is full, renunciation, everything's engaged in his service, meditation, one's whole life is and devotion. But I don't know if that added a complication to your comment, Dhananjaya, but I did think it had some relevance to your point.
Yes,
Any
Prabhu.
questions
Thank
on
you.
that? Perhaps I'll bring this up at a later time as well. I've got some more notes to make on this. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there a little bit, but any questions on this point here? Otherwise, we can read text 29. Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Hare Krishna. Okay, let's read text 29. Anyone like to? There's Anupama. Oh, you just read? Is that your hand is still up from before? Anyone else like to read?
Can I read, Prabhuji?
You can. Please go ahead.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, Prabhu, I haven't read. But
Oh, it's okay. You can read next. You can read
No
next.
problem. No problem. No problem.
Go ahead.
Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare pranapanagati rudva pranayama parayana apare niyata hara pranam prane sujuhavati. Translation. Still others who are inclined to the process of breathe, restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Purport. This system of yoga for controlling the breathing process is called pranayama. And in the beginning, it is practiced in the Hatha Yoga system through different sitting postures. All of these processes are recommended for controlling the senses and for advancement in spiritual realization. This practice evolves controlling the airs within the body so as to reverse the directions of their passage. The apana air goes downward and the prana air goes up. The pranayama yogi practices breathing the opposite way until the currents are neutralized into puraka, equilibrium. Offering the exhaled breath into the inhaled breath is called rechaka. When both air currents are completely stopped, one is said to be in Kumbhaka Yoga. By practice of Kumbhaka Yoga, one can increase the duration of life for perfection in spiritual realization. The intelligent yogi is interested in attaining perfection in one life without waiting for the next. Thus, by practicing Kumbhaka Yoga, the yogis increase their duration of life by many, many years. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the controller of the senses. His senses being always engaged in the service of Krishna have no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. So at the end of life, he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. Consequently, he makes no attempt to increase his longevity. He is at once raised to the platform of liberation as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Mam chayo bhavicharena bhakti yogana sevate sagunam samtit yaitan brahma vuyaya kalpate. One who engages in an unalloyed devotional service to the Lord transcends the modes of material nature and is immediately elevated to the spiritual platform. A Krishna conscious person begins from the transcendental stage and he is constantly in that consciousness. Therefore, there is no falling down, and ultimately he enters into the abode of the Lord without delay. The practice of reduced eating is automatically done when one eats only Krishna prasadam or food, which is offered first to the Lord. Reducing the eating process is very helpful in the matter of sense control. And without sense control, there is no possibility of getting out of the material entanglement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very nice reading. Thank you. So Prabhupada's doing the same again. He's keeping us on track, mentioning about the highest principle of bhakti. But any specific questions or comments here? We've heard of Hatha Yoga. It's unfortunate, but most people have no idea what yoga is actually for in this day and age. And Prabhupada would often critic so-called yoga societies. More or less, it's just for some physical well-being. But traditionally, it was a means of attaining states of self-realization. You can see it's pretty intense here. What they would do, curtailing the eating process, for example. And I do a little bit of yoga, but I must admit it's just for my health. And I do experience that if I'm hungry and I do a yoga, I do like yoga for half an hour or 45 minutes just for my health, then my hunger goes away. Because you're breathing, you're doing it's so they would do this, persons would do this very much strictly. Yogis would do this, and Prabhupada mentions about they would even extend their lives because it's said that the span of your life is set out of how many breaths you're going to have. So therefore, a yogi would slow the breathing process down, not even stop it, in order to prolong life, to spend more time in developing spiritually. What does Prabhupada say about that? In the purple, he said, devotees of Krishna.
He makes no attempt to increase his longevity.
Yeah, makes no attempt. Although it doesn't mean that we don't deal with sickness, we should deal with sickness. But Prabhupada mentions here, yeah. And the eating process, we don't have to curtail the eating process, but how do we follow that? Obvious one, no?
We just tell Krishna Prasad.
Yeah, we eat Krishna Prasad. Saridada Vijjal. Oh, we can't say that today. Today's Ekadashi. Yeah, so today we're following Ekadashi, some of us maybe. So reducing the eating process. Again, this point that I mentioned, that bhakti encompasses everything. Yeah. Strictly controlling the senses. And we do that by engaging our senses in Krishna's service. And that means we're strictly controlling the senses. Yeah. But I must admit, it's a challenge in this material world, which is full of distractions. So, but generally, Prabhupada's speaking here, and speaking about a devotee here. I just lost the verse. Okay, mentioned at the end. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the control of the senses. So this is looking at a particular level of attainment in Krishna consciousness. Which level might we say that that this is? There's a word for it. Nishta, could we say, being fixed in Krishna consciousness? We could conclude that. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the control of the senses. So that means we do not have to make a separate endeavor. Although, is there a possibility of not being in control of our senses in the context of Krishna consciousness? Is that possible? Can we just see as much prasad as can we just eat buckets and buckets of prasadam? No, Chandravali's nodding her head. No. Yeah. No, but in the beginning, generally you see that when devotees, because they're leading very strict lives and compared to what they was leading before, and prasadam is the only shelter. So I get a big lots of prasadam. But it is expected at some point that devotees will regulate their intake of prasadam in order to facilitate their actually engaging in acts of devotion. And Prabhupada said in one place, just paraphrasing, he said that if one eats lots and lots in the name of prasadam, what words he used? He used, if one eats extravagantly in the name of Krishna prasadam, he will certainly fall down because of being agitated. His senses will become agitated, and he fall down to sex attraction. Actually, he mentions, if one doesn't, in the name of prasadam, one doesn't control oneself. But it's a whole subject, prasadam, Any questions on that or comments? Well, it's 7 o'clock. All right, I have to make a little announcement. On Monday, I'm scheduled to be flying to New York. I have some service there, doing some teaching service in regards to deity worship. So I really want to continue these classes, but I'm going to have to see what the schedule is. So I'm going to try and connect up on Tuesday and Wednesday to have these readings and discussion, because I'm really inspired by it and I want to do it. But so if it's not the case, then I have your emails, because everyone who applied, what they call it, registered. And hopefully I'm going to find some way where I can send, not to everyone individually. It's quite, do you know how many people have registered for this discussion here? For your interest, we have 150 people. Yeah, but we don't get 150 people turn up, which is probably just as well. It might get a bit complicated. But 150 people, some come, some are busy, some come every week, some just come once every 2 weeks, or some just watch the recording, But I will let you know, okay? I hope that's okay for everyone. So stay tuned. Hopefully we can do something next Tuesday or Wednesday. If we're not going to do it, I can let you know, and I'll be away for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Prabhuji, I'm going on Saturday to Jagannath Puri in Char Dham Yatra with Karunamai. So we won't be here until 2.5 weeks.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you like this. It's good to get in some to slow down and look at the purports and really make sure we understand, what Prabhupada is saying. And the main point here I emphasized today was Prabhupada's keeping us on the goal of the Gita, which is bhakti, when we're hearing about all these different yoga systems, So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and let's see if we can get together next Tuesday and Wednesday, okay? Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare